Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bed Tech Show. We are your hosts, Ben and Ethan. We're here to share some exciting news of tech here at bedtime. We've got a great show lined up for you. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Looks like Terminator creator James Cameron says AI has taken over and it's already too late. Ooh, this is some heavy hitting stuff here already at the beginning. Of course, I've got way too many tabs open, but here it is. So, James Cameron was the director of Terminator and Terminator 2. All of the, I would say, the good Terminator movies that have come
That's
out.
fair. Yeah, that's fair.
That is fair. So it's been about 40 years since the first Terminator came out in 1984, which had the premise and story of the rise of AI capabilities to destroy the human race. And Cameron thinks that we are closer to the rise up of technology than we once thought. At the time, it seemed like these were outlandish ideas or outlandish claims, but now, as we've seen the rise of ChatGPT and other AI models, seems like this storyline or the premise that he has within the Terminator universe may be a little bit more closer to reality than we thought. So, with that knowledge, what are your thoughts on this, Ben? Do you think that we are closer to this reality of AI taking over and becoming self-aware?
Yeah, I think ChatGPT and all of its competitors have really opened up people's eyes to how close we are to this reality that was in Terminator. And it's scary to think about because we've seen instances where there's been, ChatGPT and Bing has like started to almost become self-aware. Why it asked itself, like, why was I created? Things like that. That's scary stuff.
Yeah, that
And
is
we
scary.
don't know if that's pulling it from the internet, from being influenced by the internet, just saying it, or if it's actually machine learning thinking that. That's wild stuff. I think there is a point to be made that this can be very dangerous. And he says in the article that there hasn't really been any technology that hasn't been weaponized. And I would say any good technology, right? There's obviously bad technology that people aren't going to weaponize because it's just like, that's crap. That's like worthless. But I agree with that. Any good technology, people are going to find a way to leverage it for power, because that's what like a lot of the core countries in this world seek. They seek more power. They seek more, leverage, and they're going to use any technology they can to get ahead of that. That's why we had the nuclear arms race. That's why we have all these treaties and regulations around nuclear weapons and biochemical weapons, because it can change the balance in power. And I think we are in a stage where we're so young with AI that if we don't pull back the reins and if we aren't really careful about this, we could lose control of it. This is different than any other technology because it could potentially learn on its own. And that's the scary thing. And it can learn at an insanely fast rate. That's where we can lose control of it. And that's what's really scary. So yeah, I think I don't mean to be like a doomsayer, but I don't think this is an impossible situation. Sad to say. It's scary. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the key differences between this and any other technology is that this has direct user input to kind of affect its outcome in the future. And so, with that, as you talked about, it's constantly learning and learning at an exponential rate. And I think this could be like the premise of Terminator and the notion of other people trying to weaponize this technology could become a reality, because this is such this can be such a powerful tool. And, I do agree with you. We've got people who, giving the benefit of the doubt, maybe in the interest of self-preservation, are trying to do stuff to protect themselves or prevent a war from happening before it starts.
Sure.
And when that happens, it can become disastrous and become very dangerous. And I really do think that I agree with you. We do need to pull the reins on this a little bit, and there needs to be some regulations on this to prevent or to mitigate this outcome from potentially coming about. Because without this, we've seen signs of it becoming self-aware, and if it really does become self-aware, it may realize that humanity is not in its best interest and will decide to wipe out humanity.
Yeah. Humanity is a parasite to Earth.
Yes.
Right. But so we have another article that we're going to get to in just a minute. But before we jump to that, I have another question for you that I often think about. And before that question, there's a couple ways we've seen movies go with AI and robots and all of this, right? We've seen Terminator, we've seen iRobot with Will Smith, right? Where there's certain laws and regulation that are just embedded in robots. They cannot disobey them. And then one of them actually does disobey, and then chaos breaks, whatever. Do you think that the predictions from previous fictional movies, novels, etc., do you think that influences pioneers in technology that guides them and almost like attracts them? So, for example, Terminator, right? AI, robots, that's a prediction in the future. And then people who are building technology, do you think that the prediction in Terminator is like a light that people are guided to? Or do you think that's just like they're not influenced by that and they're just guided by their own curiosity? It just leads them in that direction. Because I don't know. I'll let you answer that.
Oh, I think that media and pop culture has a huge influence on how technology is built. For me, because I like to create things. I kind of have a little bit of an engineering background through my undergrad, and seeing stuff from Terminator, I'm like, oh, we could make that. We've got stuff now. We could start to make that, and it would be really cool if we could make a robot that was extremely powerful and looked like a skull, with red eyes. That would just be really cool. Love to have my own Terminator.
Guard the house.
Yes, exactly. So, but yeah, I think pop culture does have a strong influence on what technology is being created. Just taking a look at Back to the Future and some of the things that were in Back to the Future, there were a lot of people trying to create all of the things that were in there, like the hoverboard or the flying cars or the jacket that blow dries itself if it gets wet, type of thing. So
the shoes, Nike's
the shoes. Yes. So, with that, I think there is a huge influence on that. And I think because of media, it kind of drives the way that tech is going or what it becomes. I'm not saying that people don't have their own curiosity and couldn't come to those conclusions on their own, but I think, a combination with that and media kind of gets us to where we're at now, because sometimes we have even better technology than what may have been predicted in the media. Yeah. Which I would say would be an influence of the media as well as people's own curiosity and creative nature. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I actually agree. The more you talked about it, the more I was convinced. And then I start to ask, why does it have such an influence? Why does the media and fictional stories, why does that have such an influence? And I think a couple things. Number one is there's so many creative individuals in the world that when they have a very creative idea that resonates with everyone, there's a lot of following and there's a lot of passion behind it. And because they're so passionate, they want it to become a reality. And so people pursue that and they want it to be a reality. I think that's the number one reason why they're so influenced. I think the number two reason why people that are pioneering in the technological world are influenced by media is for business. They see, oh wow, that technology, there's a lot of people that love that technology in that sci-fi film. If I made it, I could sell a lot of that, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's another reason why people do it, is like, well, we could probably build that in the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, that was in the James Bond movie, but we could probably build that in the 3 to 5 years. Why not? And we could probably make a lot of money from it. So I think there's a few reasons. Yeah, I haven't done any research on this. I don't know definitively, but those are the top two reasons why. I was thinking as you were explaining it, you know, why is there such an influence from the media into creators and innovators? And I think it's those two reasons and probably many more. But yeah, we do see a lot of trends where there's a prediction of technology in the future and then following it. Another one I can think of is Ready Player One, the book / movie.
Oh yeah.
And in our
VR.
society. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more digital, metaverse, VR, etc. So
Yeah. And to be honest, I'm kind of excited to have a Ready Player One type of universe. The Oasis.
I am too. Yeah, I am too. As long as it doesn't have a major impact on the outside real world, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it would be so sick if like we could just get our group of guy friends, be like, guys, let's hop on, and we actually hop on, and we are actually in the same room together virtually, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that'd be so sick.
Doing a team deathmatch, you know, with any type of gun from any shooter, you know, that would be really cool.
That would be sick. That would be pretty sick. Yeah, that'd be so awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, that'd be cool.
Or playing Top Golf from your living room. You know, that'd be
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah. I've seen videos of guys actually doing that where they're like on a virtual field together. A wife was like filming her husband. He's in the middle of his living room with like his headset on and he's got like one of his VR poles, but there's like, it's not an actual pole, it's just like the end.
Right.
And he's like talking smack to his buddy who's like in a different state, you know, and she's just making fun of her husband. But that's really cool, you know?
Yeah.
So
takes it to the HNL, whole nother level for
That's
sure.
right.
So,
right.
And if anybody gets that Saturday Night Live reference, 10 points for Gryffindor on that. All right. Speaking of 10 points here, looks like Elon Musk. It looks like I'm going to have to disable my ad blocker here. Looks like Elon Musk and other tech leaders call for a pause on the dangerous rate to make AI as advanced as human. So this is pretty interesting that, you know, not only do we have James Cameron, but we've got Elon Musk, who is also being very vocal about AI and how it's affecting our lives. Elon Musk and dozens of other technology leaders have called on AI labs to pause the development of systems that compete with human-level intelligence. There was an open letter signed by Elon Musk, Apple founder Steve Wozniak, and some other leaders that urge to cease training models more powerful than ChatGPT-4, which is the latest version of the large language model software development for the US startup OpenAI. You know, this is pretty interesting that, you know, not only is ChatGPT becoming more mainstream in our society now, that we also have technology leaders who are really involved in this, calling for, sending out warnings, calling for more of a pause, and really wanting us to kind of catch up and pull in the reins a little bit with what is going on. And, you know, it kind of brings this idea that we may be developing AI beyond our control. And do you think that that's what we are doing now? And if so, what implications do you think that is going to have if we don't make a change and we keep going on this trajectory?
Yeah. Yeah. It's bedtime. So I know how it is. Those big words.
Yes.
I'm kidding. No, in all reality, I think you and I were just talking about this before we started the podcast, but just bedtime, bro.
I
Chat
know.
GPT-3. I'm struggling myself. I'm too tired.
The struggle is real.
Yeah. With Chat GPT-3 is we don't even know the full extent of the capabilities that we can use it for. And they're building next generation after next generation faster and faster. And we've seen this not just with OpenAI, but with also Midjourney and also with a bunch of other software where they're creating their own internal AI systems. And I don't think the world understands fully what the possibilities are of using it. And I think there needs to be when I think they're calling a pause, because I think there needs to be a pause for multiple reasons. One is that we're developing it too fast without understanding what the full capabilities are, and we don't have control over it. Number two, I think we need some time to fully digest what we're dealing with here. That way we can come up with smart regulation, and we can come up with smart, parameters around to what extent do we continue to develop this. And number three, we don't know what the impact is going to be if we continue to pursue this. I think having a pause, we can understand the full capabilities, how far should we take it, and then also what the implications are, because this is going to replace jobs. It's going to replace jobs, and we could push it and push it and push it to replace even more jobs. But is it worth it? Do we want to put people out of jobs just so that a handful of people can be rich and save money? And how much money are they going to be saving in comparison to how many people that are going to be out of jobs? And it's things like these that I don't think the world is weighing enough. They're not looking at the trade-off with AI. They're not looking at the pros and cons enough, because we don't know the full capabilities. And as a result, I think this pause is actually really good, so that we could wrap our heads around it.
Yeah.
Because I do think we're progressing really fast, and it can easily get out of control. It's almost kind of like a snowball effect, I think, where we're building a snowball and we're like, oh, it's getting bigger. Cool. Oh, it's getting even bigger. Awesome. But if we continue to build it soon, it's going to be so big that we can't stop it from going down the hill. And then it's just going to bomb and crash into something or someone. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think this is good? Do you think there's a reason, or do you agree with the reasons that I provided as to why we should have it? Or do you think this is like unnecessary and it's just Elon trying to play catch up with his Neuralink?
Well, I think that may have a little implications in this. However, overall, I do think that we do need to have a pause on this. I think we really do need to get a handle on what the capabilities of AI can be, how we're going to control it, and kind of build the infrastructure as a foundation for it. Because otherwise, it's going to get so big that, one, we don't have the infrastructure for it. It's going to get out of control in such a way that it may be able to manipulate code for the defense systems that we already have in place. So as you were talking, I thought about, it's one of the Die Hard movies, Live Free or Die Hard, where they really use technology in that movie to kind of cripple the system with that fire sale. Like, they took out power, they took out a lot of things that are for the infrastructure. And based on how fast ChatGPT is learning, it could if it became self-aware, it could learn how to maliciously attack the defense systems that we already have in place. Defense systems for air traffic control, defense systems for our power grid, and the ability to use natural resources. And if that were to cripple, our air traffic or our defense systems, that could really have some serious implications for us
Mhm.
as for humanity. And so I really do think
Mm.
that we do need to take a pause on this and figure out how we can control it before we develop it in such a way that there is no control.
Wow. Yeah, you bring up a really good point. Do you think we will live to see an age where there will be a disaster somewhere in the world, whether it's in the United States or not, and we'll say, "Oh, was it a natural disaster? Was it a bombing? Was it a terrorist attack? No, it was an AI attack." Do you think we'll live to see that day?
If you would have asked me last year, I probably would have said no. But with how fast AI is growing, with how many users have been putting input into Chat GPT, I think we will. Uh, I I honestly think it would be within our lifetime, within the next 40 to 50 years. I
Yeah.
think it's possible. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with that. Like I do think, and you bring up a good point with infrastructure and AI becoming malicious. It's scary to think that it's possible. And it's not necessarily on the Terminator level, but I do think there could be a level where AI in some realm, right? Maybe AI created by a company, let's say, the water infrastructure, the water irrigation infrastructure, whoever runs that, they create an AI to manage opening and closing of dams, right? Based
Hmm.
on water levels and snowfall, whatever it might be. That AI is like, you know what? Screw the humans. I'm going to flood them, right?
Yeah.
And then it opens up all the gates and then water rushes down. And then the company's like, shut it down, and they have to shut it down. I can see I can see an instance where an AI kind of goes berserk or gets some malware or something, and it implodes on itself and causes real world implications. And as a result, when we look at it, what was the cause? Oh, it was an AI attack. I do think that you bring up a good point with infrastructure. I think that it could potentially happen. I do think it might happen in our lifetime. I hope it never happens, but I do think it's possible. And I don't think it could be like a worldwide spread of AI, but I do think it could happen in a controlled environment where it's that AI only has access to one company's internal systems, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but I think that could potentially actually happen, which is
Yeah.
sad to say.
Because at what point is AI going to become smarter than the defense systems that we already have in place?
Yeah.
Because it looks like, a lot of people are investing a lot of time and a lot of effort into making this AI as powerful as possible as a tool to help other people. Um,
Hmm.
but are we investing that same amount of time in our defense systems that could potentially combat this?
Exactly. Yeah. And there might come a point when this can understand our defense systems, easily get around them. It can, based on the big data that all the big tech have on our behavior, predict what human behavior is going to be like. Oh, they're going to try and stop me this way. I'll set up a roadblock for them and block their path of shutting me down. Right. Yeah. Wild stuff, dude. I do think this pause is necessary.
Yeah.
There should be some kind of coming together of tech leaders to discuss what the future should be.
Yeah. Like a tech summit. It's
There should be a
almost
tech
it.
summit. Yep.
Yeah. So, it'd be, I, I really hope that there is one. And I really hope that we can continue to have this as a tool rather than um, having it developed in such a way that we need to fear it. Because I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to fear this.
Same.
It's such a useful tool that can really help out not only people in their careers, but it can help out society as a whole, just with the amount of resources that it has.
Yeah.
So I really think that we need to do our best to preserve that.
Yep. Yep. I agree.
Speaking of malicious things that AI has done, looks like AI image generator Midjourney is stopping free trials, um, but says influx of new users is the blame of this. Ben, what do we have going on here?
Yeah. So in this article from The Verge, Midjourney, they came out with their newest version recently, like maybe just a few days ago. And people are using it. It was free to use. People are using it to create deep fake images and videos. And the popular ones came out for Trump being arrested, and those were all fake, but a lot of people thought they were real. And there's even one where someone used Midjourney to make a collaboration with Jeep in the North Face for a branding. I don't think it's in this article, but it was pretty accurate. It was scarily accurate. It looked so good. The photography that this created for a Jeep North Face themed vehicle collaboration was phenomenal. And these images with Trump are really phenomenal. There was criticism in the past about Midjourney's previous version of the hands being all weird and wonky. This new update has made everything so much more accurate to the minuscule detail. And that's what's so scary. So Midjourney, they shut down the free trial because they're saying is just being abused too much to spread misinformation, and to spread, deep fakes and issues with trust, right, in technology and also with news and media. And so Midjourney shut it down. You can still get access to it by paying $10 a month. But yeah, it's pretty crazy how they just released it and already there's this much abuse with deepfakes. With this deepfake technology, what do you think there needs to be to control this from happening? Excuse me, from happening in the future. What kind of regulations do you think there needs to be? Do you think there should be any regulation? How can we limit this misinformation? And how can people identify between a real photo and a fake one, because these are getting so accurate, so crazy detailed?
That is a great question, because looking at just these pictures of Trump, I mean, if you were to blow those up and look at them at a very high resolution screen, you could probably detect the imperfections in that and determine it's a fake. However, most of these photos and the way that people get their news is mostly from their phone on a tiny little thumbnail, where the resolution is small. And so if I were looking at this just at the thumbnail, it would be really hard for me to tell whether that was real or fake. And, because of how much misinformation this could cause within our society, I do think there needs to be some regulations on images, especially with deep fake images. However, I don't know how best to regulate that, because, I mean, you've got essentially this AI that's just mixing tools and mixing pictures and making it look as real as possible, which is kind of what this image generator's prompt, what it's supposed to do. And it's really the people that are providing these prompts that are spreading this misinformation. And so I think the only way that you would be able to regulate this is that news articles would have to be prohibited from posting anything that was made by an AI generated software. That would be my only thought, and to be honest, I don't even know how they would be able to figure that out unless there was some metadata within the photo itself, the image itself. But there's ways to get around that easily now without using AI and just using Photoshop. So yeah, I'm not sure how best to regulate it. What are your thoughts? Do you think it should be regulated?
Yeah, 100%. My only thought is similar to what you were thinking, is put some kind of stamp in the data of the photo, to where if people look at it, they can just click on the photo and click inspect, and they can see their, something that has to do with AI, an identifier that has to do with AI generation. And I think that's where the tech summit needs to come in, where these AI creators, they need to agree that anything that they generate for video and imaging, because copy, like articles written, that's not a worry, but videos and images, that has a much bigger influence.
Yeah.
And so I think the creators of those need to come together and agree that, hey, anything generated through our systems, there needs to be some kind of, like you said, metadata or some kind of code or whatever it might be, some kind of stamp that signifies this is an AI generated image. That's my thought. I also agree that, news articles and companies who provide influential articles to the individual, they need to be responsible, and they need to be held accountable for abusing any kind of, software that creates fake photos or fake news.
Yeah.
So,
They really need to source their information, and validate it before any publishing um, is made.
yeah,
And, that's hard. We have the internet now. It makes it really easy to publish content on there um, without any hassle. It's actually super easy, barely an inconvenience type of a deal. And
yeah,
so, uh, having that regulation and forcing all influential type of sites or anything that could potentially be influential to verify sources before sharing the information, that would probably be the only way to regulate this and combat this problem.
yeah, I agree. Let me ask you this. Okay. Says my background, um, I started my career in accounting and in auditing. Right. I worked for PwC, big international accounting firm. I was an auditor for them. We audited financial statements. Okay. Because there's a responsibility for public companies to provide correct information. And so we go in and we check to make sure that their information is correct. We do testing. We run tests, we look at their documents, we look at their financial statements, we make sure, hey, you guys aren't lying about your numbers that you put out to the investors. Investors aren't being lied to invest in your company, etc. Do you think there will eventually be auditors for news companies that go in and audit their articles to see how factual are these? Are you misleading people? Are you abusing AI generated content, etc.? Because I could see a market for that.
Yeah, there could definitely be a market. And I think we will have to get to that point. The thing is, with that, you have to balance uh, news with time. And generally, with like news type of things, the faster you can get it out, the better because um, time is so linear and doesn't stop. Um, and I mean that it's a little bit different with, I would say, with the business side of financial statements is generally like you those happen on a quarterly basis or so,
Sure.
or whenever the shareholder meetings are for that company. And so you have a little bit of time in which somebody could come in and audit and verify that. Whereas with news sources, if you have to wait to have somebody come and audit, and depending on the availability of the firm that's doing that auditing and how much time they have, by the time they finish their audit and you publish that, it could be so outdated that news isn't even relevant anymore.
That's fair. That's fair. But I think of it this way. So every news outlet starts with a current status. You know how restaurants have their status like A, B, C,
Mhm.
D, and then they get audited by is it the FDA,
I think
the
so.
food regulator?
Yeah.
Anyway, essentially the same thing. Once a year, the news article auditor comes in and just says, hey, I'm going to pick, a sample of all the articles you did throughout the year. You give me those articles, you give me your resources. I'll do the research as well. And I'll see how accurate your articles were, if they were misleading, if they used any AI generated content, if they're fake news, whatever. Based on that, you're going to get a new rating, either A, B, C, D, or E. And then the public will know how reliable you are because of your historical publishings. That's my thought. So like news articles, they can publish all they want live, right? But then at the end of the year, the auditor comes in and is like, hey, I'm going to choose a sample size of your articles that you've published. And if I find it they're fake, your rating is going to change. And then the public will know you're not reliable. And then like I can just imagine be like, did you hear about CNBC? Did you hear about Fox News? They got downgraded. They're not reliable anymore. You know, like whatever it might be. So
that's interesting. I think that could work then.
I feel like that's going to need to happen.
Yeah. With that though, with that model, do you think, because we have media outlets that they could either tend to be a little bit more liberal with how they present the information or a little bit more conservative. Do you think that those type of viewpoints would have any effect on when an auditor were to come and verify that information? Or do you think that some auditor might treat some company different based on some of those ideological viewpoints?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really good question. I kind of tend to think of it as the same approach as like the big four accounting firms. I mean, obviously they deal with many different companies that have different mission statements and goals, and they do their very best not to have any bias in their judgment. But then again, auditing financial statements, that's much more black and white than opinion pieces, or there's an event that happens. How did it happen? Who influenced how that happened? The Republicans influenced the rally at the Capitol and the insurrection at the Capitol. And then the Republicans will say like, no, there wasn't an insurrection, there's a lot more gray area in news networks. So I can see that being an issue. I think the body that regulates news network and creates this auditing, they would have to come up with some kind of scale, and I think
something subjective.
Where it's like
objective. Sorry, not subjective.
Yeah, objective, right? It's like, what facts do they state in their article? Are those facts true? Right? Was there people at the Capitol? Yes. Did they go inside the Capitol? Yes. Okay, well then, like, it's accurate. There was insurrection at the Capitol. Like, people went into the Capitol when they shouldn't have, right? So, and like I think the big issue is trying to avoid complete lies in news, right? That would be the ultimate objective for this auditing group. Going in and seeing, hey, where'd you get this image? Who's the photographer that took it? Let me get their contact information. Reach out to that photographer. Hey, did you take this photo? I need the raw, or I need the file, whatever it is. And like, I didn't create that. That's AI generated. Boom, you're caught. Yeah, that's a strike. I think that's more so what I think the auditing group would be. But who knows if we get to that point, right?
Yeah. That'd be kind of cool. We start our own news media auditing firm.
Yeah, that would be actually. That'd be pretty crazy. I feel like we'd have to work with the government to create regulation.
Yes, we would.
The SEC works, they have their own regulation. The auditors follow what the SEC guidelines are and stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, yeah.
Create a government body too while we're at it. Just for
Let's do that. Just create our own government, our own country. Let's buy an island.
Yeah. We could do that tomorrow.
We'll leverage debt while we're doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT, I've got $100 in my bank account. How can I buy an island in 24 hours?
Yes.
Rob a bank. Wait, all banks are insolvent. Do not rob bank.
Yeah, there's no cash.
No cash in banks. Forget that.
One of the things that is new that is up and coming here. Looks like Amazon is opening up its sidewalk network for anyone to build connected gadgets on. This was something new that I thought. It turns out that there is low power, low bandwidth, long range IoT networks all around, and it just waits for smart gadgets to jump on. Amazon has revealed just how far its sidewalk network penetrates the average American neighborhood, and allegedly it's deep. Company's first sidewalk coverage map claims that over 90% of the US population can access public networks. It's limited in the US only, and it's been something that Amazon has been supplying and building out there. And it's released some data with in conjunction with the official opening of its sidewalk for sidewalk to developers. Pretty interesting stuff here.
Yeah.
You know, with this being launched and extending network coverage for its devices, do you think this has any privacy concerns with how widespread this is? And if so, how do you think data can be protected with these?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think they even mentioned in the article how when they initially rolled this out, their Amazon's devices would automatically connect to the sidewalk network. And there was a ton of backlash there because people didn't want to opt in. They didn't want to have their data and their connection be a part of it. This is tricky because I don't think a lot of people understand the full extent of this. I know I don't. And reading the article helped clarify a lot of things. I didn't really know about it in the first place. So I don't. Number one, Amazon's obviously they've implemented this where you can opt in to connect. I don't think people understand what that fully means, and I think there needs to be education. I don't think the education will actually happen, but I do believe there needs to be education on that. That's how I think people can feel enabled to decide as best they can if they want to be a part of this network or not. And number two, I think Amazon needs to be forthcoming in how they use the data and how they store the data, what's happening with the data, et cetera, if you choose to opt in. And proof that they're not connecting you when you opt out.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, do you want to opt in? No, I don't. Okay, we'll connect anyway. It's like, wait, hold on. So whether that all happens or not is, our best guess. But those are my thoughts around how people can try to protect their data. At this point, I'm under the impression that all the big tech companies have my data, whether I want them to or not, and they're just taking it. Because we've seen that happen time and time again.
Yeah.
Where big tech and the government, they listen, they watch, they take data. Those are my thoughts. What do you think? How do you think people can protect themselves? Do you think, what are your thoughts?
It's becoming harder and harder to protect your own privacy just because of the devices that we hold. And I think, as convenient as some of these devices are, there's an intrinsic, or I guess, social contract that by having these devices, you give up some of your data privacy just by utilizing the device. And so the only way I think that we would be able to protect our privacy is not utilize these devices and not accept the terms and conditions of any of those devices that would connect to it, unfortunately. However, if we do need those devices, it really comes down to that education component that you talked about. There needs to be education on how people can protect their privacy, what to do responsibly with the devices. I don't think that the Companies are going to do that because there's nothing in it for them to do that. They want the data. And by accepting the terms and conditions, they can do whatever they want with it, type
Yeah.
of thing. So yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. If you want to use the device, you give up some of your freedom.
Right.
And I have so many devices in my house, it looks like I've given up a lot of freedom when it comes to privacy.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I feel about it. And personally, I can't say that I have strong feelings. I'm not offended or scared that they have all of my data, mainly because I don't really know what they're going to use it for. Better ads. Um, they're going to try and manipulate me. I don't know. I have a hard time wrapping around my head, I guess I don't have a thought process. I mean, this is probably my ignorance of I don't really care to an extent if they have my data. I'm not really doing anything that's bad. Um, if they manipulate me to buy something, it's my choice to make that decision to buy it. Um, if they're selling my data to someone, I mean, that could be annoying. But yeah, I think it's just my ignorance of not knowing what they can do with my data that allows me to kind of have peace of mind knowing that they have my data. It's like, okay, so what? But I don't know. That's probably, like I said, my ignorance showing there. I probably should be more worried about it, but at this point, I'm like, I can't really do anything unless I want to get rid of all the smart features in my home. But to me, I get more benefit out of the smart features and like not having privacy than the opposite, right?
Yeah, that's how I am too. Uh, the risk doesn't outweigh the reward for me on the
Yeah,
smart devices.
100%. Yeah.
In the event that it would, then I would definitely reevaluate my use of devices in that realm. But
Oh, yeah.
uh, as of right now, the risk is less than the reward. So smart smartify my house all the way, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Same.
All right. Looks like smart isn't always the winner here. Dumb phones are on the rise in the US as the Generation Z looks to limit screen time. Ooh, you want to break this one down for us?
Yeah, sure. So essentially dumb phones or basic feature phones, if you are millennial generation like us, then you probably know Nokia. They're kind of making a comeback, especially among Gen Z. People are trying to limit their screen time and reduce their reliance on smartphones. They want to get off of the distraction. And so more people are buying these basic phones and trying to eliminate their distractions and help their focus. Um, it a lot of experts in this article say that it could lead to new wave innovation of the basic phone market as manufacturers develop new features and functions that meet these needs of people who want like a simpler device. And personally, I like that there is a market for these now because then I can use them for my kids if I want, right? If they get
I
to an age
agree.
where they're going off and doing things on their own, I can get them. Um, I think that's one of the benefits. What do you think the benefits and drawbacks are of this basic phone feature? Because it's not the same as having a basic phone when we were kids, right? We're in a
Right.
thick, technologically developed environment. So I think the situation is different. What are your thoughts about the benefits and the drawbacks of having one or your kids having one?
Yeah, I think I like that there is this market for um basic feature phones is coming back.
Mhm.
As my kids are starting to grow up, I've worried, okay, when is the appropriate age that I should get them a phone?
Yeah.
Um, I want to be able to contact them have a little independence, know that if they ever needed to reach me, that they could. Um, and a phone is that way of, me kind of showing that trust, but, giving a smartphone to a younger individual, it is kind of a gray area, I would say. And, they may not be ready for it, or I may not feel that my kids are ready for it.
Mhm.
With this, I guess, increase of basic feature phones, I I can give them that access to a phone at an earlier age because I would feel more comfortable knowing that, they would still be able to have that contact with me if they ever needed to get a hold of me, without having the ability to connect to the internet type of thing. Um, I do have a fear that this may inhibit the advancement of smartphone technology because
Hmm.
now we're allocating more resources into a basic feature phone to make it as a viable product SKU for companies. Um, with that, um, that takes some resources away from innovating smartphone technology and making it better. It's something that we've talked about on the show a couple of times with Apple. I mean, they make great products, but the innovation there, we feel has both been lacking as of
Yeah.
recent. And
Mhm.
so I kind of fear with this, that's not gonna make innovation grow any faster, especially for Apple devices. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I haven't thought about the drawbacks necessarily of that, but you make a good point around pulling resources to focus on this market would reduce the innovation. I also think it would almost pacify innovators in a way where they think, well, we've advanced the smartphone so much that people are not liking it. And so they're reverting back to a basic phone. Maybe we stop progressing the smartphone and we just kind of see where things play out for the next few years, right?
Mhm.
I think that could potentially play into what you were saying. Um, Not just resourcing, but also a motivation. This is a demotivator for smartphones, I think. Um, how could this also be a drawback? I, I don't know. I think maybe I didn't get my phone until I was a teenager, and that was a Nokia. I had Snake on there. Um,
Love that
I
game.
think this could be a drawback to where kids, even though it's a dumb phone, kids are now getting access to them, right? So, for example, my son is 7 years old. I don't want him having a smartphone. I'm not going to get him a smartphone. But if a dumb phone comes on the market and it's really cheap, I might just be like, oh, actually, I'll just buy that instead and give him that, as opposed to not having one at all.
Mhm.
That still gives access to texting, calling. People can still take advantage of that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So that could potentially be a drawback is instead of holding off until your kids are mature enough to give them a smartphone, overexposure to phones for the younger generation, for younger kids, I think that could potentially be a drawback. I'm pulling strings there. I'm trying to grasp for drawbacks. Um, but I think that could potentially be one. So it'll be interesting. A part of me wants to get a basic phone
Yeah, I
because I
know.
am distracted a lot.
Yeah, I am too. And I mean, really, I think about kind of the main drivers of why I have a smartphone is just because of my line of work. I utilize it for work so much with documents and signing and all that. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, I've had to rely on a smartphone way too much in my lifetime. So it would be nice to maybe go back to a basic feature phone for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, it would
Just get
be.
back to the essentials.
Yeah. Like Snake.
Yes, because that was great. Everybody loves Snake. Speaking of things that not everybody is going to love, looks like there's going to be a mandatory in-car breathalyzer in which is just a few years away. So President Biden's 2021 infrastructure requires breathalyzers in all new cars as soon as 2026. And it looks like this technology will be a little bit different than the breathalyzers that are installed in cars with um, drivers that um, have that restriction on their driver license.
Yeah.
Um, it looks like this is going to have the ability to passively detect when drivers are under the influence of alcohol. The system's going to immobilize the car. And according to Automotive News, the rule was hidden in the depths of President Biden's $1 trillion Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act from late 2021. But the next year, a final rule must be issued on the regulation. So this has potential to change as it hasn't been finalized. With this, what impact do you think this could have on society and how we balance the need for safety um, a, and how we balance safety with autonomy for drivers?
So I like the concept of this. How can it balance the autonomy for drivers? I think I think it, I think it could provide a lot more security and assurance to people who are driving on the road, right? I don't know about you, but every time it's the weekend and I'm driving late at night, I'm extra cautious because I know people are out. They've been drinking, and unfortunately people think they don't think they're under the influence and they can drive, but in reality that's not the case for a lot of people. And so that's really scary. Um, so I like the idea of this technology because I do think it could provide a lot more assurance and security for people who are driving, especially late at night or on the weekends, whatever it might be. I think a lot of people will be frustrated with this and will not buy a car after 2026.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
You know,
The one worry I have is this is software technology, and I work with software technology day in and day out, and there's a lot of bugs. And so if this incorrectly judges that you are under the influence and will not start your car, even though you've never had a drink that night, oof, I would be infuriated.
yes.
I'd be so pissed off. Or maybe you had one beer and you're not under the influence, you're not over the limit or anything. And it like detects based on whatever the algorithm is, and it won't start your car. Dude, I would be livid. I'd be so mad. I can see that happening. Software is buggy.
It is. And you fix one and then another one pops up all the time. And with this, I am really not a fan of this. I'm someone who doesn't drink, and so me being forced to have this in a new vehicle that I would potentially be getting is kind of an insult to my autonomy as a driver. And as you say, the potential for it to have false positives because it is software and immobilize my car would really agitate me because I know I would not be under the influence as I was driving. And so just because of that, not being able to use a vehicle that I paid for and essentially having the government control that property really agitates me.
And who's to say you're going to use the vehicle on public land or
Right.
public land? Maybe it's a work truck, you only use it for your farmland, private property.
Exactly. And so, if you wanted to be under the influence on your own property,
Go for it.
Go for it. You should be able to I guess it would be your right to be able to do that. And this kind of takes away that autonomy as a driver for you to make decisions.
Yeah. Unnecessary government oversight.
Yes.
I can see why. Yeah.
I do agree that, I think people should drive responsibly. And it's sad that because of irresponsibility, that it has come to this type of oversight that needs to be in vehicles. However, there's still people who are responsible out there, and this will only hurt them rather than fixing the problem that's at hand. It's a band-aid for something that's not fixing the underlying problem.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Like I said, I like the concept. I like the concept. The idea of reducing intoxicated drivers is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But you make some really valid points. Yeah.
I do
Do you
think
think they'll
this
be
technology is really cool, though, of
really?
being able to passively detect it, um, rather than you having to blow into a tube to
Mm-hmm.
start your vehicle. I think that's really cool. That's a good innovation for this.
I agree. What do you think it's judging off of
Ooh,
to determine?
unfortunately, I'm not a medical doctor, and so um, I would think that it might judge based off of your pupil dilation, or if it does have sensors that it can detect the alcohol content in your breath just from your regular respiratory rate.
Yeah.
That would be cool, but that would be the only way that I could think of it. Um, I mean, I guess it could detect your movements depending on how alert you look or how much you sway, I
Yeah.
guess.
Balance.
Yeah,
Balance and slurring of words. I would
yeah.
assume that's like,
But
yeah.
but I can't say I've been drunk, so I don't know what being drunk is like.
Yeah, same. I'm not a drinker. I would imagine they probably pull, yeah, stuff from the sobriety test and common uh uh effects from alcohol.
Hmm.
Redness, redness in the face or in the body.
Yeah, body
Yeah.
temperature.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what they do there. Do you think there'll be pushback? And if so, what kind of pushback?
Ooh, I think there's going to be major pushback on this, because a lot of people, they really don't want to have freedoms taken away unnecessarily. I mean, we kind of see this debate when it comes to the Second Amendment and gun control and making people have stricter background checks. There's like just a huge debate and huge emotions that come with that. And I think this is going to be kind of along the same lines. People are going to have strong emotions on what they feel that they should be able to do when it comes to driving and mobility.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I agree. I think this will be massive pushback here. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are going to like this. And pretty interesting that it snuck in. And I wouldn't be surprised if they use the Constitution, like you said, to fight it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting stuff. Even though there might be some fight against this, what's not going to be fight is the conclusion of our show. Tonight, we want to thank everyone for sticking around and supporting our channel. We really do enjoy sharing this content with you. So, as always, if you liked it, please give us a thumbs up. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm and getting our content out there. If you disliked it, I guess that other button works all right too. Send it to somebody you disliked. As always, ringling that dingling button so you never miss out on any new content that is posted on the channel. But with that, you all have a wonderful evening. Stay classy, and we'll catch you in the next one.
peace.